Well, what about you? With trembling hands he began to tear off his clothes. A jacket, shirt, tie, pants, shoes were scattered on the floor. And here, in front of me stood a primitive man, completely naked, covered with hair from head to toe. It was a sight both scary and pleasant. Is this really going to happen? I thought, and I got scared. But desire overcame fear. Everything was on fire inside, and I could hardly resist the urge to press against him. But, suddenly, involuntarily, my hand reached out and grabbed Ted by his huge torch. He was hot and hard as a rock. What am I doing? I covered my face with my hands out of shame. Ted groaned and collapsed next to me. And at that time there was a knock on the door. I instinctively cowered in the corner of the bed, and Ted, like an angry lion, jumped to his feet and, covering himself with the sheet, rushed to the door.
Devil! I will kill him!
He shouted and opened the door. The frightened face of the Chinese woman appeared from there. I brought you rum and brandy, sir. Ted snatched the tray of bottles from her hands and closed the door. He was so comical with a blindfold, a tray and a sheet in his hands that I laughed. Looking at me, he also laughed.
I'll crush the head of the next one who pokes his nose in here.
He placed a tray of fruit, wine, chocolate and biscuits on the bed.
Well, when they brought it, let's drink.
And Ted began to uncork the bottles. His torch became much smaller, not so threatening, but still thick and pleasant.
And love will not run away from us, right? Do you like me?
In response, I just smiled and stroked his hairy chest.
Let's drink.
After a few glasses, I felt pleasantly drunk and, taking the chocolate, listened to Ted's cheerful chatter. I felt so good that I forgot where I was and what danger I was in. We fooled around and laughed like children. He was in a good mood. Soon, Ted began covering my body with passionate kisses. I fainted from desire and, clinging to his hair, pressed myself closer to him. He tore his lips away from my neck and whispered,
Katie, I want to drink your love drop by drop.
Drink if you want. Although all at once. And I pressed into his lips with a long kiss. Pulling away, Ted pressed his lips to my body, chest, belly. In exhaustion, I spread my legs wide, and he began to cover me with kisses and finally I felt him. I was shaken as if by a lightning strike. I have never felt such pleasure. And Ted must have gone crazy. I froze in delight. My hips involuntarily squeezed him tighter and tighter. I closed my eyes and completely surrendered to the pleasant sensation of a hot, male body. His fingers ran along my back, my hips, my buttocks, causing sweet thrills throughout my body. I don't think I wanted anything more. Ted quietly rolled me onto my back and, easily overcoming my resistance, lay down leaning on his elbow. It seems that this was exactly what my soul was longing for. My legs began to bend at the knees by themselves. I was very wet there. And soon I couldn't say whether I wanted more or not. But the growing desire began to push aside the shame and fear of severe pain and I don't know what else. Ted was lying on top of me now, his arms around my shoulders. I felt pain, and screamed a little. He let go of me, but immediately drew me to him. I screamed again. But not only from fear and pain. I was already being pulled, teased. I wanted to. And my knees bent even more and spread to the side. Later I realized that Ted, an experienced male, a master stallion in love, wanted to enjoy the process as long as possible, the moment itself. Stone fingers squeezed my shoulders even tighter. I screamed in excruciating pain. But he suddenly froze. I cried and started fighting under him. In vain. The pain was getting worse and Ted was pinning me to the bed. I bit his chest, moaned, screamed, and suddenly felt something inside me being torn apart. My head was clouded by the pain coursing through my body. I screamed, howled, cried. Tears rolled down my cheeks like hail. My whole body was covered with sticky sweat, I felt that I could not stand it and would pass out. It would be better to stop this suffering. At the same moment, Ted kissed me gently on the forehead and stretched out next to me. Then he carefully hugged me and began to kiss my face, neck, chest. Completely broken, and very tired, I lay motionless and could not utter a word. I didn't have the strength to even think about what had happened, and later I imperceptibly fell asleep. I woke up from a hot kiss on the back.
Have you rested? I didn't bother you?
I felt sick and scared. Is he going to torture me again? Monster. I will be skin and bones. Ted did not show much persistence. He must have been really uncomfortable in front of me. However, his hairy body required complete discharge.
Good. I just don't know if I will be able to sleep.
There was a plea in his voice, as if Ted was with the woman he loved for the first time, and he wanted to give himself to her completely. This thought struck me so much that I clumsily, trying to suppress my embarrassment, began to whisper. He, hearing my whisper, was surprised.
What are you saying there?
I love you.
Well, you're funny.
He must not have heard anything like that from the women he was with before at same moments.
You know, I really like you too. A lot.
Have you ever been as good with others as you are now with me?
Never. I swear by all the saints.
I was more and more overcome by passion, as if he and I had been close for a long time and we were connected by years of understanding, suffering, that huge world of love that makes a man and a woman happy. At that moment, my feelings probably revolved around this great and incomprehensible thing, which for every woman is the essence of her relationship with her lover. Our games lasted quite a long time. And it seemed to me more and more that I was madly in love, and loved just as madly. Soon Ted left. I tossed and turned in bed for a long time, trying to calm down and fall asleep. I still seemed to hear his smell, his breath, his words. But to be honest, my pleasure on our first night was more spiritual. I didn't really enjoy it. I seemed to stop somewhere halfway. A little more, just a little. Still, the most cherished thing remained unexplored for me. At night I was haunted by frank dreams.
Did you think you could do it for the first time without pain? Don't you know that in life you have to pay for everything? Sweet, I came to you with love. I liked you right away, and don't be surprised. I'm even ready to marry you. Someday we will definitely marry you and go to Italy. I'm fed up with these local vile people.
Of course, I did not believe his words. However, even in a dream I felt sympathy for him, and some timid thought reassured me that I had lost and done it for the first time with my beloved. Not like an ordinary whore. And as a girl who had to pay for love with all her innermost feelings. I slept soundly, though I shuddered several times, and each time Ted's face emerged from the blue mist, reaching out to me with his hand and trying to convince me in a gentle voice that he had done it only for my salvation. As we agreed, Ted came to see me a few days later in the evening. I waited for him, looking at the clock and imagining meeting him. Apparently, after our first night with him, a woman woke up in me, and this woman wanted only him. Despite the fact that I was waiting for Ted from minute to minute, his arrival was still unexpected. I jumped out of bed, threw myself on his neck, and then something strange happened. I didn't know Ted like that. Closing the door behind him, he silently threw me on the bed, pulled my legs over his shoulders, and before I could remember, he started doing it again. I was uncomfortable. I tried to lower at least one leg from my shoulders, but in vain. It was as if they had tied me with a rope. I was completely crucified like a holy martyr. The mad fire of his passion flowed into me, and it seemed to me that Ted and I had turned into a creature that had lost its mind.
You are in pain. I know, but you have to be patient. My sweet, be patient for my sake.
I want to endure like this forever, my dear. I was so excited that everything began to float before my eyes, and only a sudden sharp pain brought me back to consciousness. Here it is, my first time. Real, with pain and torment. My hero takes me. He destroys me and gives birth again. And this pain is my best pleasure. Suddenly Ted groaned and squeezed me so hard that my bones cracked and I let out a loud yelp. Relaxing his embrace, he began to cover my body with kisses that felt both tenderness and gratitude, and as if an unspeakable promise to be faithful to me until the end of his life. His joyful satisfaction brought me more comfort than my own feelings. I seemed to have experienced pride in my strength, my feminine power. It was I who was able to cause such a storm of passion in the life of a man. So, I'm becoming a woman. Tell me, dear, did you not think that your joy caused me pain? I thought everything would burn inside me.
I just couldn't think at that moment.
Are you always so good with women?
Not with everyone.
Only with me?
As for me, yes.
Don't think that I'm so wild, but I want to do it again. I really want to be under you again.
We will always want to.
We didn't have to wait long. Ted put me on my stomach, put a pillow under it and lay on my back. Leaning over me on his elbows, Ted began to move in a strangely gentle and soft way. Soon the rhythmic creaking of the bed was joined by a very obscene sound from our connection. Out of shame, I clenched my teeth into the sheet, closed my eyes, but did not make any movement to weaken this shameless sound. And he became stronger and stronger, and I began to listen to him, and the more I listened, the more lustful this sound seemed to me, reminiscent of the sound of a pump. The whole body surrendered to the feeling of great male love. A small dull pain was drowned out by an indescribable pleasure that kept growing, intensifying. We were both silent, only the creaking of the spring mattress, our heavy, intermittent breathing and shameless sound could be heard. Ted did not slow down or speed up the movements, but methodically brought me and himself to the highest point of pleasure. Soon I was already half conscious and could not control my body. The legs are extended, the ass is lowered. My body was covered with sweat, my face was burning, my mouth was greedily catching air, and I was almost unconscious. Suddenly, he somehow particularly strongly pressed against my back. I froze, feeling that a little more, and I will reach that peak of pleasure, when consciousness is lost, when you can't see anything in front of you, and only strong shocks of blood beat in the temple.
Maybe you feel bad? Maybe that's not enough for you?
Not enough.
You seem to be becoming a real insatiable woman. Do you know what makes me happy?
What? My dear?
I am happy that I did not give this fire, this wild passion to those drooling hyenas. I can't even imagine how they would have stolen such a miracle. They would make you another submissive whore.
Ted and I were like two rivers, only he is a potential, raging stream that sweeps away everything in its path. I am a small stream that cannot resist the onslaught of oncoming water. His hot waves absorbed me, and I dissolved in him, losing strength and will. This is how my honeymoon began. While Ted managed to restrain his boss with assurances that he was resorting to special methods, to wrest my father's secret from me and that in the end he would guarantee success. Until then, I asked the boss not to surrender. In Red's absence, I was also not bothered much. Several times I helped set the table when the guests gathered, served them food and drink and, taking advantage of the opportunity, watched various lustful scenes.